Now, it was David Cameron in 2015 who said we must make work pay, remove the welfare trap, and encourage parents to go out to work without fear of crippling childcare costs and loss of benefits. And so we've had some free childcare for 3 and 4-year-olds and some tax-free provision. No government has begun to match the demand of the women's movement for 24-hour free childcare, but as small steps have been taken, how much have they benefited the parents who need it? And the economy that it was envisaged would benefit from parents going out to work? Well, those are the questions being asked by the House of Commons Cross-Party Treasury Committee. Megan Jarvie is Head of Policy at the Family and Childcare Trust. Rushanara Ali is a member of the committee and Labour MP for Bethnal Green and Bow. Rushanara, we talk about childcare a lot on this programme. Which to you is more important, enabling mothers to work and have financial independence, or bringing more tax into the economy because they go out to work?
Good morning. Well, I think it's important to achieve both. It's vital that women have the opportunities to be able to participate in the labour market and make a contribution both to their family finances if they choose to do so, as well as to society. And from the economic perspective, it's absolutely critical that we enable women and those men who are returning back to work and require childcare to do so with knowing that they have high quality provision available when they go out to work. And the benefits in terms of tax revenue, but also tackling poverty for poorer families who are able to return to work is absolutely potentially phenomenal. And that's why our committee is doing this inquiry, because we believe that the economic case needs to be made, understood better, and some of the barriers to people participating in the labour market need to be addressed.
Megan, how complicated is the current system for claiming support for childcare?
It really is very complicated, and a lot of parents are completely bamboozled by all the different options that are out there. There are 8 different ways that families can get support with childcare. It varies by how old your children are and how much you're earning. So even if you get it right at one point, it will change once your child's a little bit older or your earnings are different. The complexity as a result of good intentions is because we've had additional funding in childcare and different initiatives being added onto the system over the last decade or two. But what we need to look at now is this whole system and try and reduce that complexity, make it easier for parents, and make sure that parents aren't slipping through the gap and that they're always better off working.
Rushanara, Labour, Conservative and coalition governments have all grappled with this question. How high would you say it is on the current Prime Minister's agenda?
Well, I hope it will be. I hope it is. As the second female Prime Minister, it's important that, as a woman herself, that she champions this cause. Not only because it's the majority of women who are affected, but also
because you were very keen to point out that fathers needed
of course,
childcare.
but it's about showing leadership and making sure successive Prime Ministers do so. I'm not aware that she has spoken yet on this agenda, and I very much hope she will. Our job as a committee is to make sure that we interrogate what the government has done so far, where the problems are. We are already aware that between 2015 to 2017, some 1,000 nursery providers have faced closure. There are issues with the HMRC website that is meant to be available for parents to be able to access the childcare support that they need, that there have been problems. So we will be looking at the effectiveness of the current programmes and what needs to be done to improve that. There's also a massive issue around funding shortfalls. I find that in my own constituency, and we're really keen for people to give evidence. The deadline is the 8th of February of their experience, both as organisations but also as parents, so that the government, if it's serious, including the Prime Minister, if they're serious about addressing the problems and the complexity, that they take action.
Where are we now, Megan, compared with previous government strategies, if we look back to Sure Start, to making work pay?
So we've seen progress. We've seen an additional investment in childcare, which has been really positive. But we do still see a lot of problems for families. A lot struggle to pay the cost of childcare, struggle to find childcare that's available, particularly if you don't work the typical 9 to 5 or you have a disabled child.
Yep.
We know that there's huge shortages. Only half of local areas have enough childcare. It's even worse for those atypical hours workers and disabled children.
So to what extent does the benefits trap still exist?
Well, we know that there's been a lot of work that's done to make sure that parents are better off working. There's probably not been enough that looks at childcare costs, and particularly families that face the highest childcare costs. Our research says an average family on the lowest income will take home £2 an hour from working. That's not an awful lot. It makes it a really difficult choice for parents about whether or not it's worth them working.
And how do two-parent families fare compared with lone parents?
So there's different families in lone parents and in couples will really struggle. We know within couples that the second earner, which is typically the mother, might struggle with seeing whether their wages are higher than their childcare costs. For some lone parents, they will also struggle. One of the things that would be really positive to see is a bigger role for fathers in caring. That is part of the solution. And actually our workplace cultures and societal cultures make that quite difficult for a lot of fathers, and they miss out on the joy and the responsibility of looking after their children.
You mentioned, Rushanara, the problems that have been reported about the Childcare Service website, where people can apply for 30 hours free or tax-free childcare. Who's to blame for its failures?
Well, HMRC is responsible for this site and they've had to pay out compensation for those families who are affected. What we want to see is that no parent who's accessing that site finds themselves out of pocket. They've had to pay the compensation that problem is rectified, and we will be seeking further updates from HMRC to see what improvements have been made since the last time back in September evidence was given and an update was provided to us. There's also another issue which is to do with the take-up. The OBR forecasted that 415,000 people, Office of Budget Responsibility, that 415,000 families would be able to take up the 30 hours provision. It was only 30,000 that had done so. So even with a policy that actually we can all broadly support to increase childcare provision hours, the take-up means that a well-intentioned policy isn't being implemented, and so we need to understand better how much of that is about supply, quality of care for nurseries and resources, because if we don't address the supply side problems of availability, it's all very well for the government to announce these things, but it's not going to change people's lives and women's lives.
Megan, what are parents saying to you about the cost of childcare?
They are finding it really difficult. At the Family and Childcare Trust, we do research into the cost of childcare. £6,000 a year just for a part-time nursery place. There is support out there.
Is that across the board, or is that just in London?
That's the average. In London, it goes up to 8,000. So it's really, really high. But the most important point is looking at this whole childcare system and how we're spending funding towards childcare to make sure that it is working for every parent and every parent is better off working.
Megan Jarvie and Rushanara Ali, thank you both very much indeed. And of course, if you would like to submit written evidence to the inquiry, go online, search for Treasury Committee Childcare Inquiry, and you have until February the 9th. And of course, when we get the results, we will report on that too. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Now, if you